I am Jim Collison, and this is Gallup's Call to Coach, recorded on November 15th, 2023. Call to Coach is a resource for those who want to help others discover and use their strengths. We have Gallup experts and independent strengths coaches share tactics, insights, and strategies to help coaches maximize the talent of individuals, teams, and organizations around the world. If you're listening live and you're on our live page, there's a link to our YouTube instance so you can join us in chat. If you're on LinkedIn Live or Facebook Live, the chat is just below the video window. Love to have your questions live. You can put them there. If you have questions after the fact, if you're watching us on YouTube or as a podcast, you can send us your questions, coaching@gallup.com. And don't forget to subscribe wherever you are so you never miss an episode. Lauren Hunter is our host today. Lauren is a key account leader with Gallup, and her top 5 are developer positivity, arranger, my number 1, responsibility, and individualization. Lauren, always great to have you on the program. Welcome back.
Thank you, Jim. I'm so excited to be here today.
Let's take a second, if you would, for them. We got some fabulous guests. Why don't you take a second and introduce them?
Yeah, that would be great. Well, we're so excited, Jim and I, to host Lindsay Corporation here today. And I'm joined by a couple of my fantastic partners that I've been so lucky to work with over the last couple of years here, Kelly Staup and Katie Campbell. Kelly is the Chief Human Resource Officer and actually helps oversee, the Chief Diversity Officer and actually manages HR at Lindsay Corporation. And Katie Campbell is a Senior HR Business Partner. So we've been lucky enough to partner and really focus on Lindsay's employee engagement strategy and how they're thinking about rolling out strengths and performance management across their entire employee experience. So I'm thrilled to work with you both, and I'd love for you both to just share a little bit more about yourselves and your role at Lindsay. Maybe just get a little bit more detailed here with us.
Sure. I can go first, Katie, and then you want to go after that?
That works.
I lead the human resources function here at Lindsay, and I have been with Lindsay for 12 and a half years, which I can't believe, actually. And in my current role for about 6 years. So for me, it's just been really fun to kind of see what we've been able to do culture-wise here at Lindsay and utilize strengths. My background, I was a psychology major in college, so assessments and different things like that, I get super geeked out about it. So being able to take that work and bring it into our organization has been a ton of fun, and you guys have been great partners. So thank you for having us.
That is great. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
So I've actually been with Lindsay. I'm coming up on 3 years in January. Time flies when you're having fun. And I remember when I first joined, a lot was that we focused on was the development in general for employees and managers. And so I was really excited about that because that's one thing that I'm passionate about. And being in HR, I have the opportunity to do that in this role. And so over the last couple of years, working with Gallup has been really exciting to just see the impact that this has had already within our organization and being able to tap into something that I really love doing.
That is so, and the power of two, between you both as well is so amazing to see. Kelly, I love that you mentioned as well, you're a psychology major, and as you think about strengths and that role that plays, I'd love for you both to share your top 5. I have them pulled up, but I'd love for you to just kind of share a little bit more about your top 5 strengths and how you're using those in your role.
Yeah, I think for me, my top 5 are adaptability, includer, harmony, achiever, and self-assurance. And I think I own them, like 100% own them. But I think that it is an interesting combination. And in my role, I talk about this with my team all of the time. Adaptability is my number 1. And so I think where that shows up for me is the ability to kind of switch gears. If things go wrong, I can kind of quickly change course, that kind of thing. But then it's coupled with this self-assurance, which probably makes me feel like I can switch gear and make things work no matter what happens, which isn't always the case. But it is kind of, those are the 2 I think I probably own quite a bit. And then I see the harmony and includer come up through, I think, just being part of the human resources function and really trying to create that holistic culture where everybody feels, like they belong and they're a part of the team and everything else. So, but mine are quite different, I would say, from Katie's and from others on the team. And we talk a lot about how we can kind of leverage, even just this morning in our HR meeting, we were talking about how many people here have analytical in their top 5 or 10. And it's like the bottom of the list for me. And so I constantly have to draw on people who have those skills. It's not even possible for me to do independent analytical work. I have to leverage the people who are stronger in that area. So that's just a story even from just this morning.
That is so great. And that's the perfect example, of how strengths and powerful partnerships. And, we're really similar, Kelly. I have high adaptability and low analytical as well. So you really feel that. And then Katie, share a little bit more about your strengths as well, because they really are a dynamic partnership as you're looking at those together.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. You put me on the spot and I don't even fully know the order of my top 5 because I just they all work together. But I have a ranger, individualization, relator, strategic, and responsibility. And Lauren, you can check me if I have the right order, but those are for sure in my top 5. And it's funny because just even partnering with Gallup and seeing how I work with the HR team, I'm kind of the go-to for getting things started and arranging what we're doing. And a lot of it is hey, where's the happy hour? Who's planning that? It's usually me. But with the function of rolling out our engagement efforts and now starting to get more into the CliftonStrengths with the organization, it's funny being aware of my top 5. I can definitely see how they all play together to make this kind of organized and work together.
Yeah, definitely. Powerful partnerships really, is what that's all about. And Katie, I'll give you an A- because you only swapped 2 of them around. So
so close.
Really close. Really, the strategic and the relator were flipped around. But other than that, you were right on.
What's funny about that is I didn't even care if I said them in the right order. That's one of the differences between the 2 of us.
Right? That is the adaptability and Kelly got them in the right order, but that's the adaptability and the arranger.
She would get it in order.
She would.
Oh gosh, that's funny.
I love that. See, so everybody's just kind of getting a glimpse into this partnership that Kelly and Katie have at Lindsay Corporation. And what's been really neat for me to see is the impact that you all have made, especially over the last year, together with all the different work streams that we've been doing together. So I'd love if you could both kind of share a little bit about your history with Gallup and how you really kind of came to know us a couple years ago.
Yeah, so I can start off with that. But I think, for us, I will even go back from before we were working with Gallup, because we as a company, I think over the past 5 or 6 years, I would say, have been working super hard on building a strong culture as an organization. And I think that we got to a point a couple of years ago where we had a good, solid foundation, but it felt like maybe things were getting a little overcomplicated. And we're a manufacturing company. And so we want to make sure that the culture resonated with every single employee in our organization and that it was the same experience, that we were able to share. We're also global. So we have,
Right.
Locations all around the world. And we have employees that their primary language is not English. And we really want to make sure that we're not US centric or even Nebraska centric in a lot of ways. And so one of the draws, I think, for us to Gallup is this concept of simplifying and focusing our culture and really making sure that it was something that was easy to remember, easy to resonate. And, a starting place for us was to introduce the Q12 engagement survey to the organization. And what we like about it is that it is very simple. So it's easy, it's quick to do, but it has such a lot of great data that comes out of it that we could use to kind of continue to build and evolve our culture. So I think that was the starting point for us a couple of years ago. But then I think, like what you said, Lauren, a lot of momentum. We've really increased our momentum, I think, in the past year and started to pull in some different elements that are going to help us to continue to elevate that. And Katie can talk to this more, but I think one of the things that I've seen that we were hoping was going to happen, but you just never know for sure, is that this work has really boiled down to the manager and the work group level. And I think that's one of the challenges that we had prior to partnering with Gallup, is it felt like the work we were doing was sort of a very top-down approach. And we were struggling getting through that layer, and so this to me feels very much more in some ways bottoms up or just, straight across the line, where everybody has that same level of skin in the game and accountability to doing and putting the work in. It doesn't feel so HR-y,
Right.
is what I always say. But Katie, I don't know, what's your experience been?
Yeah, I think you nailed it right on the head, Kelly. It felt like we had that solid foundation, but it's almost like grasping at things to pull together. Like how does it all work together? And Gallup has really, like you said, kind of simplified and focused, where we have this common philosophy now that's easy to be bought in. It's exciting, it's fun, and it makes people feel good. And so I feel like it's been easy to kind of start to embed into our culture, because we're talking the same language now. And it's kind of like, I keep going like this, but it's like the thread that just sucks everything together. Mm-hmm. So I feel like we have this common philosophy that we can share. And it's something that our employees, our front lines, our production workers can understand. It's something that our office employees can understand. Our middle management and our senior leadership team, we all have that same thought process. And it's something that's starting to become meaningful as well.
Yeah. That is so exciting to hear. My positivity number 2 is just like gleaming when we think about how, right, exactly, that's what it's doing inside. Yeah. But as we just think about where you were and where you're going, and thanks for highlighting some of those challenges too, about how the Q12 really is, I like that word, common philosophy. And Kelly, what you mentioned, it's really part of your culture, knowing that you are a global company, and it's helping really become that language that people have, not from the top down, but something when we're often working together, is we know engagement is everyone's responsibility. Mm-hmm. Something that Lindsay Co. specifically that you've done a really great and fantastic job with is establishing this champions network. And Katie, I know you've sent me some really fun pictures. If anybody wants pictures of their champions, email me. I can get you connected with Katie if you want to see some of the great work they're doing globally. But I'd love for you to just share a little bit more about your champions network. And just for context for the audience, we have our course called Engagement Champions. And it's a 2-day program where we really help build internal capability around how can we help promote and advocate and encourage engagement through a culture. And Lindsay Co. has done this really good job as a global company to establish this grounded network of champions. So just tell us a little bit more about this champions network and how they're set up globally.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is something that I'm super proud of, because it's exciting to see the connectivity that we have across the entire world. I mean, Kelly, we have 8 or 9 different countries that are a part of this. And so to have an engagement champion in every single one of our locations, where we're all connected together and sharing this same goal, right? We want to create this culture of engagement. And so it really started, our first year, 2 years ago, when we started with the Q12, and this was new to all of us. So to have a team of engagement champions learning together, starting to see how we can make an impact. But the biggest thing was the connectivity between the locations, and Kelly, you can speak to this too, but the sharing of our stories from the different locations, where, we create this culture of engagement, but it's also see the differences of how we celebrate the culture in the different locations and how that's celebrated has been awesome and creates that excitement around that. So there's a lot of work put on the engagement champions, don't get me wrong, but they do a really good job of sharing those stories. Like you said, with the photos, and just how do we create those little connections and start sharing that with each other.
And you know what, Katie, it makes me think also of the One Lindsay network and just sort of the connectivity between that, because one of the foundations of our culture has been what we kind of called sharing of knowledge, and especially so since we're global, so that we're starting to just share it with each other around the world. But we wrote it as One Lindsay, and so we want to become kind of One Lindsay. And it's weird because it turned into like a hashtag One Lindsay, where our employees were sort of telling their stories through pictures on LinkedIn and of the team events that they do. And we really sort of were able to connect the dots, I think, between the One Lindsay network that was there, and this evolved into our engagement champion network. And Katie, I give total kudos to her for really building this and making it such a strong network of individuals, because they show up to the meetings, they do share these photos and stories, and really want to talk about the stuff that they're doing all around the world, and it's helped us to really appreciate one another globally and appreciate our differences, come together as a team. It's just been so fun to watch, and Katie is a star in building that out for us.
It takes a team. Teamwork makes the dream work.
Right. It really is that powerful partnership. I mean, it's not just, an HR strategy. It's not just a Katie and Kelly strategy. It is, to your point, I love that theme of one Lindsay, and it's something that we're all doing together. And Katie, the pictures that you had shared, I'm going to just kind of focus on those a little bit because I loved them. They were focused really on helping increase that communication and that participation before your survey. So Lindsay Co had a really great participation for their last engagement survey. We try to strive to have clients about at that 80% participation rate. Katie, Kelly, would you just share a little bit more, as you mentioned, stories and connecting your cultures? I love that. What are your champions doing within each kind of one of your offices to help get that participation and ensure that within one Lindsay, every employee feels like they have a voice in this survey?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do a lot of, knowledge sharing and educating, we educate employees and managers on the importance of taking the survey. And that's how we get such high participation, because it's showing that we actually care about what our employee needs are, but also what they want. And we've come to find out, being new to Q12, is everybody's perceptions on how they answer that question is different. And that's okay. That's okay to have. And that's important because that creates the discussion and that time with the manager that they have with their team. So our engagement champions do a really good job of sharing that education and giving their locations the opportunity to set the stage for those discussions. But the first step is getting the participation, right? And so we do create a lot of fun and celebration about launching the survey, and that, keeps it front of mind for our employees and for our managers. And so just the celebration of that, each location has their own celebration. So you see Brazil, they had team sessions where they're talking about the Q12 items ahead of the survey and just preparing, hey, what does this mean to us? And how are we going to drive participation with their management team? Eating cake and playing games around Q12 items, just to spread that education. South Africa, they had an event, and I can't remember what specifically was, but specific to that culture, there was a celebration that happened to be during the launch of the survey, where they kind of threw that in there and celebrated the survey, but also this special event that was specific to that culture. And so there were a lot of locations that did something different, even down to the production floor of bringing in food trucks and giving them time to go out, having the QR code right there. Hey, grab a taco and take your survey. It was a celebration. Who's not going to eat a taco and then fill out a survey, right? If it's right there, make it easy and celebrate it. That's the fun part of it.
Grab a taco, take a survey. I think that's going to be like the headline of this podcast today.
Lauren, we might take that idea and just do it here on campus. That would be awesome. Yeah.
I agree.
Let us know when you do, so we can visit.
Yeah. Food. We just really rely on food for pretty much everything.
Yes.
That's true.
I also think, though, that there was an element of healthy competition. I think that's another piece of our culture too, where it was. People really were, there was this, like, we want to do the best we possibly can. And so there were just so many different creative ideas that came out of it independently to try and create a little bit of healthy competition, which I love to see that as well.
That's a good point, Kelly. I knew people that had competition in their top 10. And so I would kind of pin those leaders or those managers against each other and say, hey, they're about 5% higher in participation than you. And so there was healthy competition, but behind the scenes, I was kind of, poking the bear a little bit on that to see, but it did work. It was
She's
pretty
crafty.
fun to see.
Katie is crafty.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, that is a great example though, Katie, of how you're using strengths to pair well with your engagement strategy, which, by the way, we will talk more about strengths. Nate, I saw that you had a great question in the chat kind of about how Lindsay Co. is showing success with their strengths. So, I mean, here's just one example, right? I know it's not measurement specific, but we'll get more into that. And everybody in the chat is also really talking about how food is a missing strength and Taco Tuesday is evolving. So, you know,
100%
just so we
agree
know,
with that.
Yeah.
everybody's aligned.
Love it.
So, you know, as we're thinking through this great communication strategy and the global connection that you have and stories, let's kind of shift gears to post survey and more of this impact piece. Because I love what I'm hearing about how this has been this common thread. So, when we're thinking through how it's actually changing your culture and this established champions network, how are your champions supporting your local level leaders post survey to actually have these really impactful action planning conversations?
Yeah, this is one that we're still working on and kind of fine tuning. I'll be honest, this is probably the most challenging for our engagement champions and our managers because it's so new to us. We never really enforced the action planning previously, right? And this is something that's important because it shows that we care about the feedback that we're getting from our employees. So although it's been a challenge, a lot of it is just being there for support to have these discussions and really putting some preparation into how those meetings will go to make it meaningful. You don't want to have another meeting to sit there and say, hey, this is great. This is how we answered the question, and then let it sit for a year. We want this to be something that we're working on throughout the year and taking these actions that isn't just to check the box, but it's something that is meaningful to our employees and they feel that it is actually creating an impact. So as far as that goes, we're still fine tuning, but it is just about being there for support, answering any questions, and really encouraging our managers to have those discussions with their teams so that we understand where they're coming from and what's important to their team specifically.
I think too, when I'm on the engagement champion phone calls, the thing that I hear you talk about, because Katie really leads this, but what I hear is that we're embracing the concept, even in this part of it, with the one meaningful conversation per week. So it's not just, you know, the managers doing it with their employees, but it's also, or with their team, it's the engagement champions connecting back to their work groups and helping support them using that concept of one meaningful conversation per week, which it feels very just organic and authentic, I think, from that standpoint, as they work on it. So that's the one thing I will add there as well.
Yeah. And something Jim and I, you know, with a lot of clients that we work with, we see that one meaningful conversation per week is so vital to engagement. And it's one of our biggest discoveries in addition to, you know, that manager counting for 70% of their team's engagement. So I love that that's something that's really kind of been embraced and not rather just, hey, we're going to have one action planning conversation, but how can we actually take the Q12 survey and use that survey more as like a framework for our managers to have these ongoing conversations. That's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any examples? I'm just curious where you've seen like, because you shared a couple about strengths earlier today. I mean, even from meetings this morning, Kelly.
Yeah.
But do you have any fun, like real life examples of how the Q12 survey and these meaningful conversations post survey have actually seen like a difference on a team or seen change behaviors or had that positive impact?
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of examples, but one that is my favorite story to share. We have we have distribution centers and they're in 3 different locations. We have Idaho, Georgia, and Texas, and they're small. Shipping and receiving, right? They're shipping parts out. So they're small in each of those centers, and this manager that's over these distribution centers, and they're, you know, mostly males, but they don't really like to talk about their feelings. And so this was really a new concept for them. They have to get on a call and talk about what Q12 means to them. And so they were kind of set to, you know, this is an HR call. And what was really awesome about this call and surprised all of them as well is that they really had a meaningful conversation with each other. And so you talk about having Q10s, and they scored pretty high on that. So they did talk about their best friend at work quite a bit. But to have these managers in 3 different locations and have such strong connectivity, they were shouting out each other and saying, hey, you do this really well, and this is what this means to me. I think this is what we do well as a team. And at the end of it, I joke with them. It was kind of kumbaya. Like they were just blown away with how great of a discussion that they had. But the most important thing is they were excited to take that back to their teams because of how great they felt just sharing some of those things related to engagement. They were excited to take that back to their teams. And I continue sharing this story. And I know our distribution manager, he probably, he'd say, hey, are you sure you want me to tell this? Or, hey, are you sure you want me to record this? Because we use him as kind of our success story here at Lindsay is when we're ready to launch the survey, he's the first one that's an example of this is meaningful and it has a really, really big impact.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And he's in the, I think he's in our top 5%, safe to say, but he is one of our top teams that has a really highly engaged team.
Yeah, he's awesome. He's doing a great job. The other thing I was going to, example I was going to share is even specifically with our HR team, one of the areas that we focused on that is a strength for us is this concept of recognition and providing recognition to others. And so we really had thought about what can we do to leverage that strength as a team throughout the organization and kind of role model it and help the organization overall get better at it, because we saw that was an opportunity for us from an overall standpoint. So what has been fun to see, at least with our team, is we have just naturally now, every single time we get together, we do shout outs and we just talk about, thank you for helping with this. Thank you for helping with that. And I think that we've also been able to kind of role model that and see it start with other staff meetings and different kinds of meetings. But we've also then organizationally started to take this concept of recognition and just really embrace it even more. So we have quarterly employee meetings and we've got these little recognition forms that people can fill out on a weekly basis. And we'll take a few of those for every meeting and I'll read them. And I'll literally say the name of the person who gave the recognition, the name of the person who's being recognized, what value are they being recognized for? And I'll read the story that was written by the person. And this is something that we broadcast around the globe every single quarter. And every single time we do that, I'll get feedback afterwards of, thank you so much for, that opportunity to be recognized and that kind of thing. So that's, a big example because everybody likes to be recognized differently. But I think it's just we've tried to do the small moments and the big moments to really sort of move the needle when it comes to that. And it's been, I know this. I think we all know that people like to be recognized in different ways. But when I get the thank yous and sort of like the feedback on how impactful it was and how much it meant, then it's like, gosh, these are the simple things that make such a huge difference. And I think that's been a really big learning for us as a company.
Lauren, I know we're going to talk about their strengths development here, but I've got to summarize a little bit of what I'm hearing you guys say, because as we think of those first 4 Q12 questions, right? No, it's expected of me. I got materials and equipment. I get an opportunity to do what I do best every day. Strengths we're going to talk about in a second, but you guys have really nailed, or it sounds like you've really nailed the recognition part of this, which is really an accelerant it's the flame that gets all of this going. How important has it been? Katie, you mentioned the strength or the champions, the engagement champions, maybe the firelighters in the organization, right, to get this going. How important has that recognition been? And is it in this journey, has that been what's got things going and kept them going for you? And Katie, let me throw that to you first to say, how's that worked?
Yeah, so I think yes, overall, yes. But from an engagement standpoint, I don't know if we've connected the dots of the celebration is recognition. Because when I talked about the celebration of launching the survey and how important it is to gather the feedback, and maybe we think about this, Kelly, I'm kind of having an aha moment, but how do we connect the dots that this is recognition? Because everybody thinks of that in a different way. Of the global recognition and sharing of the stories has really caught fire, and I think it makes people feel good. And we do this from a global standpoint now so that we can start sharing the stories across the world. So from that standpoint, yes, but I think we could do a better job of actually connecting the dots that this is a form of recognition.
I almost wonder too, because I'm thinking about the same thing, but in some ways, what we're calling storytelling is celebration, because we've really tried to, exercise that muscle of telling these stories that are a part of the culture. And that maybe is the connection that we need to make a little bit stronger, is when you're celebrating, that's actually storytelling, and the storytelling and the celebration is the recognition. It's all sort of part of the same thing to a certain degree.
Let's write this down. We need to have more discussions like this. This is great.
Our former COO was big on this, that every time we celebrated, we recognized.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't just getting together to party, which was fun, but that there was a recognition component to that part, to make sure folks, because it's such a powerful accelerant to both development and engagement, and super important. So Lauren, let me throw it back to you. I know we want to spend some time talking about strengths too.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is such a perfect kind of transition into this as well, because strengths is such a tool for recognition when you're really thinking about it, so that we can all embrace who we are, uniquely as individuals. And I love the storytelling and the aha moments. We're going to have to hop on a call after this to just think more about it. I love it. But, as you're thinking about how you're rolling out strengths and really embedding this into your culture at Lindsay, I know you have 4, and check me on this if I'm wrong, 4 Gallup certified strengths coaches, correct? Yes.
Mhm.
And you've been really embedding strengths into your culture globally. So let's just kind of shift gears and talk a little bit about how you're currently embedding Clifton strengths into your culture and what that process has looked like so up to this point so far.
Yeah, this has been an exciting journey. So I had approached Kelly about becoming a Gallup certified coach, because I had this in my mind, is this whole common philosophy thing. If we're going to dip our toe in, let's just jump in and make an investment in this, so that not only do we touch on engagement, but we're really tapping into the strengths of our managers that will help encourage those needs from those employees, the development. Someone cares about me. If we're looking at the strengths that each individual brings to the team, what does the strength of the team bring to the rest of the company, right? So threading that needle with everything. And so when I had approached Kelly with getting certified as a coach to really support rolling this out through the company, I thought, I can't do this alone. So I'm going to maybe throw the names in of a couple of my peers to go through the journey with me. So we have 3 of us in the United States, and actually one other partner in Brazil, so that we have an international partner that's also a certified coach, which is awesome. And so with that began our journey. And I will never forget sitting in the class to become a certified coach. And Heather was our facilitator for that. And we're talking about, why you're here, and kind of going in the round table and what's your plan? What's your biggest challenge? And it was kind of like oh my gosh, we have to roll this out. We have to be successful. How in the world are we going to do this and get this rolled out through the entire organization? So it was kind of this is great, but what did I get myself into? Excited moment, and you want to be successful with it. Responsibility is in my top 5. So I was committed to this, and I was so thankful to have my 3 other peers going through this with me. But we just decided we have to start with our senior leadership and our global management team, because they're the role models, and we're going to have them, help and encourage our managers to lead with their strengths as well. But we have to make sure that they become the experts in this as well, and they're taking the journey with us, so that we can actually support this throughout the company. And so that's really where we started, is with our senior leadership team and having them become aware of their strengths. We got to practice our coaching skills by coaching our senior leadership team, which was pretty fun.
There.
No pressure, right? We still haven't had our individual session with Randy, our CEO, yet, but maybe we'll flip a coin to see who's going to take that one. And so as we're going through this with the senior leadership team, another great idea talking with Kelly is we have a GMT summit that was, coming up, that we were planning in, I don't know, what was that, like 5 months out, Kelly, when we decided, hey, do we have an opportunity to bring strengths to the global management team? and kind of kick this off at our GMT Summit. And just to give you a little background on the summit, again, we're in multiple different countries. We fly in all of our members of the GMT into Omaha so that we are all together in person, and we go through business updates and just
Team
different things.
building, and
yes,
we volunteer and we do scavenger hunts and like all kinds of different things.
yes, and that's 2 days and 3 days?
3 days, yeah.
3 days of all of us just being together. So there's 68 of us from all over the world that were here in Omaha going through all of these things together. And we made it strengths focused. And so everybody had individualized shirts with their top 5 printed on the back so that everybody was made aware of whose strengths are what. And that's how we broke out our groups. We did dinner tables, we kind of mixed it up and had a common theme that, a common top 5. Maybe it was a domain that they were heavy in. Sometimes it was balanced if we needed to do some brainstorming. But the fun part of this was our team building, where we did a scavenger hunt at the zoo. And it was, groups of 4 or 5 individuals, but it was a common theme. Strategic being in my top 5. I put myself with the strategic group. We won.
She is sneaky with her strengths, Kelly. You're right.
She is sneaky.
Yeah, here she is.
Mine was, I was in the harmony group, and we were all just like kumbaya, like just trying to make sure we all got along the whole time. Then these guys are just running all over the zoo to finish.
We had a plan. We attacked it. We went for it, and it was I think the team competition was pretty close to us, but we pulled ahead for sure. But it was, it was fun. We had a group of harmony. I think you guys had problems with your app too. And you were like, no big deal. We'll just walk around the zoo. We had our group of woos every time we saw them, or we saw them like notice another group. They're like, woo! And they're waving at everyone. And I don't know if they even submitted one thing for the scavenger hunt.
They didn't do any of it. They just went around talking to people.
Sounds just like the woo strength there. We love that.
Yeah.
But moments like that created these discussions around strengths. And then we'd go to dinner and we'd talk about it. And it would be, hey, strategic won because, X, Y, and Z. And harmony, they were harmony because X, Y, and Z. But it created these discussions. And that was kind of a proud moment for me, is how much this really impacted 68 members of our global management team, the role models of our company, and how it just really resonated with them. And that even spread like wildfire. I don't know how many emails I had. I want to get strengths for my team. I want to do this. I want to have a team session. And like, hey, there's 4 of us. Let's take a beat and like plan this out. Right.
Right.
But that's really where it started, is kicking it off from that. And then being able to plan throughout the year. How do we continue to roll this out to managers, to their teams, to employees, to our production floor? I mean, think of how amazing that would be for our welders and assembly and our, electricians that have these strengths, and the managers are aware of this, and how much impact that could have to their teams.
Yeah. And I think that was the whole point, right? Like the reason we have this global management summit every year, it's really at the end of our fiscal year, the start of our new fiscal year, is not to necessarily just report out on things or just to do fun things, but it is to get together as a leadership team and decide what are the things we're bringing back to the organization for this fiscal year, and how are we all going to be held accountable, to making sure that we're delivering to our teams when we get back. And the theme, I actually have my little, how Stanley Cups are so popular right now.
Oh, yeah.
So this was what we handed out. And the theme, if you can see on there for the summit, was strength in numbers. So we just really tried to tie that cultural element piece back to the financial performance and how those two things are connected, so that we're thinking as leaders on how to bring that back and to make sure we deliver on our goals, utilizing our strengths, and we're delivering on our goals for the organization at the end of the day. So it was, I think, the most fun, the most enjoyable, the most rewarding event that I've ever planned personally. And just to hear the dialogue of people and the conversation that went along with it, it was amazing. It was really fun.
There was one point after we get done with our business updates and I think it was the first or second night, and we had some downtime, but a couple of us went just kind of off to the side just to catch up on some work. We didn't end up catching up on work. We pulled up all of our CliftonStrengths, and we were looking through, where does this fall in your strengths? And then we went to, the bottom 5, and this was a fun conversation because it was not necessarily like, oh, you're terrible with that theme, but it was, you don't even need that because you've got this in your top 5 naturally, without even prompting them to do that. It was,
wow,
you don't need that because you've got X, Y, and Z in your top 5. And it would, by the time we had a group of 10 of us around, like, oh, let's look up this on this person. And, just sharing more than just the top 5 and really getting into, oh, that's why you respond that way. That's why you're so good at that. So that was a fun moment too, is just naturally not even expected in a,
right,
activity. It was just a natural discussion that we had.
I think the coolest thing about all of this, because all of this is just phenomenal and so exciting to hear, is that last year at this time, we were just starting to have conversations together about like, what would it look like if we rolled strengths out? So just so everybody in the audience knows, I mean, you got certified in April or May, I think it was, Katie?
Yeah.
This year. So just so everybody knows that is so exciting. And I was going to give you a hard time, by the way, for not wearing your strength shirts and having your strengths on the back. But I like the Stanley Cups. That'll do as the souvenir for showing us. There's a really good question in the chat, and I was going to ask a little bit more, but I want to kind of probe into this. Ryan asked, what's the biggest challenge that you faced in implementing strengths up to this point, and what have you done to surmount it? Because as you think about what you're doing with strengths right now, it's so exciting and positive. Have you ran into any challenges up to this point in implementing strengths?
I just, first thing that comes to mind for me is that we can't go as fast as we want to go. I honestly think that's the thing, is that we want to move. We don't want anyone to feel like they're left behind. Right. But you got to build it. We got to make sure that we're pretty intentional about it. And there's been so much buzz around it. I just think that we want to be able to move faster. We want to make sure that we can get this to every employee in the organization. And so that's just the first thing that came to mind for me. Katie, I don't know. What do you think?
You took the words right out of my mouth. I think this has just created so much positivity around strengths and a strong desire to get this to their teams. I think what kind of, I'll go back to the challenge, but I think what Kelly said is, we can't move fast enough because we're a small but mighty HR team. And there's 4 of us that are certified strengths coaches. And we want to do this in the best way possible because we don't want this to be the flavor of the month. We want this to continue and to be meaningful for managers, for employees. So if we just start handing out assessments to everybody in the company, that's not meaningful. We want them to have conversations with it. So we recently just put our global management team and a few select managers through Boss to Coach. And that has then, again, hey, I want the strengths assessment for my team. But I think that's kind of how we overcome that challenge, is being very strategic and intentional with how we roll out the strengths to the teams. Those that really want to do that will be prioritized, right? We know that those managers are ready to have those conversations, and we can kind of prioritize from there. But that kind of helps us overcome that challenge, is let's be intentional with how we roll this out.
And I think we want to make sure everything connects together. We've talked about this before, but our idea is we want to continue to build our culture of engagement, and all of these tools and different things that we're doing, they're all very connected together. It's not just strengths over here by itself, or the Q12 over here by itself, or another leadership program, Boss to Coach over here. They all have to come together. And that's where we're trying to create that intentionality, I think.
Katie, do you see Boss to Coach is extending your reach as a certified coach, because it gives those managers some tools to do some coaching with that would extend your reach inside the organization? Do you see it that way?
Absolutely. And that's kind of why, with talking with Lauren, we can't do this with 4 of us. And so we really need the role models in our company to be the arms, right? We need them to extend that reach and be able to support all of the efforts that we're putting into this. if there's 4 of us that are doing this, we're not going to be successful. We need our leadership team. We need our global management team to help enforce this. And I don't want to say enforce, that's a terrible word, but encourage this.
Yeah, definitely. And what's been really cool, Kelly, I actually just saw Kelly. She was down, and so we're all in Omaha, by the way, just for context with the audience. And Lindsay has been here, I feel like every week for the last month for something.
I know.
And Kelly was here yesterday, and she's like, I think I practically like work down here now. Like we're just always here. But what's really neat is that Boss to Coach, Kitty, I love that you brought this up, and Jim, I kind of love that question about how it's connecting everything. This is new. Katie, you just went through Boss to Coach last week. I believe it was last week.
Yeah.
So it's really fresh, and it's something that's really new. And Kelly, I love what you mentioned that Lindsay is doing so beautifully, is this is not just one thing. We're not just checking the box. All of this is this common thread that we were referencing at the very beginning. All of this is part of one Lindsay culture, and that's what is making this powerful. And Valentina even put a great comment in the chat about you're choosing a meaningful approach over speed. And that is exactly what Lindsay is doing. Katie, I'd love for you to just kind of share with the audience if you had any, and Kelly, I know you were at Boss to Coach, kind of kicked it off, got the energy running for the day. What was one of your most like impactful takeaways? Or on the other hand, what are you hearing from other participants that was their most impactful takeaway in Boss to Coach 1 up to this point?
Yeah. So there's 2 that come to mind. One of them is the Rice Krispie treats at Gallup are phenomenal. So I will never send a group there without getting the Rice Krispie treats, because I thought I was maybe going to get mugged in the parking lot for the first cohort not getting them. So
I did
Rice
get an
Krispie treats are
emergency.
number 1.
They are very good. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, they're amazing.
Katie did email us and said emergency, and I was like,
Help
oh
me.
no. And it was that she needed Rice Krispie. So just so everybody knows, food is important. Okay, anyway, Katie, go ahead.
Is number 35. That's that's 35th theme.
Strength,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, but really, the feedback that I've heard that was most meaningful and the takeaway is, and a lot of these managers are very tenured managers. Actually, we have a good variety of tenured managers to new managers. But the one common piece of feedback that I heard back is that the practice coaching with the powerful questions, and it's really just boiling down to having a meaningful conversation. It tags so many of the Q12 items. It taps into strengths and understanding, being aware of what your employees' strengths are. You can have a much better conversation with them. So even though it was, everybody kind of scoffs at, I've been a manager for how many years, I don't need to practice coaching. But the point of us going through Boss to Coach is to move from being a boss to a coach. And so it turned a different light onto, hey, this is just a practice coaching. But so many managers shared that was one of the best conversations that they've had with their employees, because you get in your zone, right? You get complacent. You ask the same questions. Hey, what are you working on this week? How you doing? If you change it, what are your priorities? What are your challenges? What do you think you're going to do well at this year? What are you most excited for? And just the change of the questions was so impactful to those managers, but also to those employees. A lot of the managers that had that experience have already started implementing that piece of it.
That's amazing. That's such a real life example too, Katie. I love that they're enjoying that experience, throughout Boss to Coach as well. And I'm glad they got the Rice Krispies too. That's so important.
Me too.
I know we only have 10 minutes left here, so I'd love to kind of ask a few more questions here for both of you. As we're thinking about like your partnership with Gallup and all these different streamlines, and you mentioned one Lindsay culture, what do you think has been the biggest cultural shift that you've had at Lindsay in the last couple of years with the Gallup partnership?
I don't know that there's just one thing that we can say, one thing that comes to mind for me, though, is just connecting this back to some of our biggest priorities in the organization. So, for instance, one of our core values is safety. And so we have launched a new campaign, and it's called the CARES campaign around safety, and it's physical safety, it's, psychological safety. It's just really everything. And that's a very big priority for us. And so the way that priority connects back to what we're doing in employee engagement and this concept of someone cares about me at work, I mean, it literally is in the name of our safety program that we're rolling out, which I think is really cool too. We're also seeing the connectivity, I think, in the area of retention. So because all these things are so tied together, if you don't, on the hierarchy, if you don't have safety to begin with, and then you have safety that helps with your engagement, and ultimately that means that we can retain the best talent in the market at all of our locations. So to me, that's what comes to mind in terms of the impact. And I sound like a broken record a little bit, but it's just really connecting everything together so that you realize that none of these things happen in isolation, and ultimately it leads to us being more productive and our performance goals and all of those outcomes that you're really hoping for when you put work in to this kind of thing, to building out that culture. That's what I think of.
I think of, just to add to that, Kelly, and I know we've talked a little bit about this as we move through the hierarchy of the Q12 items, and at the top is mission and purpose. And you think of Lindsay Corporation, we literally feed the world and we save lives. And that is such a proud thing that, if you feel that and you see the impact that you make for the organization, also for the world, that's, threading the needle again. That mission and purpose is something to be proud of. And that's really where we want to see, we're seeing the wheels turning, right? We're starting to see some of this impact. But ultimately, what we'd love to see is just people being proud of working here and feeling good. The bottom line, right? We're a company and we have to produce, we have to be successful. So all of this tying together, you think of just these incremental changes that we're making is going to have such a huge impact when we can start to see people resonating with, we save lives and we feed the world. So when that starts resonating with people, then we know that we've made a good shift.
Absolutely. That gave me chills a little bit, Katie, like hearing you talk about, Jim, I see you nodding your head, like you too. It's so important when we're thinking about how all of this work and this development that you're doing, it is all about your mission. Ultimately at the end of the day, you are a company and you have a purpose, and your purpose is so powerful and your mission is so fueling, and to ensure that your employees are showing up engaged so that your customers and the world is really able to benefit from what you are doing at Lindsay is why we're doing all of this, at the end of the day. Is there anything else that you'd add just around like what you are most proud of? I don't want you to sound like broken records, but just anything that you'd really want to kind of like brag about, highlight with your team about that you are most proud of over the last couple of years.
Well, I have a story that is it's a simple example, but I think it probably speaks to the experience that a lot of our employees are having with all of the work that we're doing. But in one of the Boss to Coach sessions, there was a comment made about how this isn't rocket science. And one of our employees who's in engineering, he said, well, actually, I could build a rocket. I have all of the degrees of rocket science, essentially, whatever those are, because I certainly don't know what they are. But he goes, but to me, this is rocket science. So I think it was that was such an important statement, I think, to why we do this kind of work and why it is so important, because it isn't easy. It seems like it should be, but one meaningful conversation per week, it does take an effort and, work to make sure that we are creating that culture that makes it more of a natural muscle and that kind of thing. So to me, that was like the hands down best comment of the week, which, I think speaks to a lot of what we're doing.
Definitely. That is such a powerful comment. Like I could literally build that, but it is, it is so tough as a people leader to be thinking through like, what does a meaningful conversation look like? And how can I be bringing strengths into that conversation daily and engagement daily? And it's something that may seem so easy to some, but it is challenging when you're managing frontline workers and you have day-to-day responsibilities as well that you're focusing on. Jim, I saw you pull the mic over. Did you? That's always my cue if you have a question.
Well, I was going to say, and you got right to the point. As we think about the results of this, and maybe we could talk just as a final question, as you guys look to the future. A lot of this stuff, I didn't even realize how new some of it. You guys talk like you've been doing this for a decade, right?
Do.
As I hear you say this, and to hear that it's new and fresh, you guys are excited. Kelly, let me throw it to you, and Katie, we'll go to you. As you think of the future, what are you most excited about in the next year or 18 months, or what does that look like for you?
I think that from my standpoint, what I'm most excited about is just to continue to kind of build the connectivity between all of the different things that we're doing. And it's like we were talking about earlier. I think we've got a lot of momentum. And I'm just excited to make sure that we can start to bring all of these different pieces to every employee within the organization. And speed isn't the most important, right? But it is really important that we can make the connections with every single employee in our organization. And that's hard. We have a lot of different kinds of employees. We have different countries, all these different factors that you have to think about. And how do we make it real for every person, and that one Lindsay culture comes through, so just thinking about it and working on it is it fuels me every single day to get up and come to work and think about what we're going to do to make that happen.
That's exciting. Katie, what about you?
Very similar to what Kelly said. I'm most excited. Already starting to see a small piece of this is the connectivity. And it's such a great opportunity to work for a company. We're like how did Paulo say that, Kelly? We're a small fish in a big pond. I don't remember. Yeah. Forget that. I can't remember it. But we're actually a small company, but we're global and we're mighty. And so to see when we're functioning on all cylinders because of the connectedness, we can do so many great things. Our goal as a company is to grow, right? And so to be able to support that, we really have to see the connectedness with engagement, with strengths, with development. And to be able to do that, we have to work as one Lindsay, right? And so that's what I'm most excited about, is to continue to see that connectivity grow as the company grows, as we continue to roll this out. And I always say the point of being intentional is to make this be successful. And I've got the be intentional way back when I started working out and I would fail lifts or something, right? And I will never forget, the coach would come up to me, be intentional. And then, here I am lifting, 125 pounds over my head. And that has stuck with me. And if you are intentional and you put the effort in, you're going to be successful. So I have all of the excitement and all the faith that we can do this. We just have to be intentional with it.
Lauren, I want to throw that question to you really quick, and then I'll give you a chance here to thank Kelly and Katie for joining us. What you're their partner in this. What are you hoping for the future for that? As you see all of this, and you've worked with other companies doing this, what's a quick hope for you as you're partnering with them?
My hope for the clients that I partner with is always to bring their vision to life. To be really honest, I have high belief, and hearing everything you've shared about continuing to make this connection through your global offices and making this part of your culture, that's my biggest hope, is that we're doing it in this really meaningful way, and that it is in fact not a checklist item. That's always my biggest thing, with clients, is that when you're surveying, we're not just surveying to survey, but we're doing it to make an impact. We're doing it to fuel your new employees that are joining the organization, and ultimately make everybody's life at Lindsay better. And this has just been so fun today, talking with all of you and learning more, about Lindsay through this process. I feel like I know so much, but I learned even more today. And I'm just so grateful, Kelly and Katie, for your great partnership. Paulo, I see you in the chat too. Big fish in a little pond. He has your back, Katie. He's one of your Q10s. I mean, he's
Thanks,
here.
Paulo.
Yeah, he's here. So just thank you to anyone at Lindsay that's joining. You are doing great work, and I am so excited for the future because I know that there are great things ahead.
Friends, thank you for doing this today. I'm trying to figure out how we've never met. That you're in Omaha, you're here all the time. How come
I
I have not
know.
run into you guys yet? So
I
I'll have to make
know.
sure.
Jim, I
We'll
did
make
see
that
you
happen.
eating lunch when I was at Boston Coach, and it's like kind of like fan club over here. I'm like, he's like a celebrity. I can't walk over and just say hi to him when he's eating lunch. Can I have your autograph?
You're always welcome to interrupt and pull me aside. So great having both of you. And it's awesome, as we interview companies out of Omaha, it's great to hear the impact they're having. Sometimes people go, Omaha, where's, I used to recruit nationally. They'd be like, where's Omaha? And I said, maybe one of the most important little cities that you haven't heard about. And so I appreciate both the work that you guys are doing. You guys hang tight for me 1 second. We'll remind everyone to take full advantage of all the resources. We have plenty of resources. A lot of that we talked about here in Gallup Access. Head out to my.gallup.com for coaching, master coaching. If you want to become a Gallup certified strengths coach, or even if you want more information on this boss to coach that we talked about, you can email us. Send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. Don't forget, you can join us for the 2024 Gallup at Work Summit. And hopefully you will be here in person for that. Easy for you guys because you're in Omaha, but many people are traveling all around the globe to be here. That registration is now open for 2024, gallupatwork.com. And if it's passed, we probably have another summit lined up ready for you to go. Same email or same website, gallupatwork.com. Stay up to date on all our future webcasts. You can follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn, all the social networks, just by searching CliftonStrengths. And make sure when you're out there on YouTube, you hit the like and subscribe button. I'm contractually obligated to say that because we're on YouTube now. And so we appreciate you coming out today and joining us. If you found this helpful, we'd ask that you'd share it. And thanks for coming out today. With that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.